When these people come out and go, Tim's a bootlicker for defending us, I'm like, no, you misunderstand. It's my boots. It's mine. I voted for them. I'm wearing the boot. I'm stomping on the ground.
I am not
the bootlicker.
I am the
boot.
A lot of people on the internet don't seem to understand what a bootlicker is.
For the people yelling bootlicker, that's that's just like it's gay. Like you're like.
If you're one of those people, let me help you out. A bootlicker is, if you're being polite, a servile person, someone with peasant brain, if you will, and I will. Yes, my lord, take my grain and steal my cattle, kidnap my children for your private army, whip me till I'm raw, I truly deserve it. I love the way you oppress me, sire, and frankly I think you should have pressed me harder. Exploit me more, and push my body and mind so hard I have a stroke. It's inherently degrading to be a bootlicker. There are brown nosers, and there are toadies, and they are undignified, to say the least, but to be a bootlicker, you have to degrade yourself before those in power.
I am probably the president's #1 fan.
Someone who would do anything, like a lapdog, to please somebody in the chain of command, in the words of dictionary.com. Someone like, well, Tim Pool.
So when I see DHS, ICE, and they go out, and they're armed, and they're putting down these protesters, and then people look at me and say, you're licking their boot, I'll bet you misunderstand, I hired the boot. I'm paying their bills and clapping for them. So cry more about it, but your lies and manipulations ain't playing with me at all, because I gotta tell you, I honestly don't even care.
If you're an apologist for ICE, especially what they've done in Minneapolis, you are a bootlicker. If you cheer at state repression, you are a bootlicker. If you're any of the conservative influencers that have made it their business to defend all the awful nonsense that's been happening lately, congratulations, you're a bootlicker. Or, if you would prefer a less sarcastic explanation, the term bootlicker has its origins in the 1840s, and in the words of James Gregg for Vice, bootlicking is deference to power undertaken entirely for its own sake, rather than out of fear or even material gain. In this respect, a true bootlicker differs from the common sycophant. The sad reality of living in a hierarchical society is that many of us will have been forced to suck up to an employer at one point or another. But we do this with reluctance, shame, and a sense of internal disavowal. The bootlicker, on the other hand, submits to power with giddy enthusiasm. I think it's an easy enough concept to get, right? Bootlicker is such a visceral term that you can see it in your mind's eye, and everyone, apart from an influencer by the name of Los Pollos TV, knows that by being called a bootlicker, you are being called out for being enthusiastically deferent to people who have power over you. You are licking the boot of the cop that's coming to beat you, for example. I think we have all met bootlickers, and if you've never met a bootlicker, that might mean that you yourself are the bootlicker, or you might just surround yourself with people with integrity and decency, in which case, good on you. Besides bootlickers being kind of everywhere, however, it turns out that bootlickers really don't like it when you call them that. The aforementioned Los Pollos TV defended the recent ICE crime spree in Minneapolis and got rightly called a bootlicker, and, as a result, crashed out for multiple days, including this strange moment where he is visibly disgusted at being called a bootlicker, but not because it, as it should, fills him with deep shame, but because he apparently thinks people calling him a bootlicker are calling him gay?
For the bootlicker, for the people yelling bootlicker. First of all, yelling bootlicker to a person could be the worst insult ever. That's that's just like it's gay. Like you're like, oh, you lick a man's boot. Like that is so fucking weird. Okay, I've been called 100 insults. It's probably the worst insult I've ever heard. Okay, I'd never lick a boot.
Now, I would argue that fewer gay people are bootlickers than straight people. But I'm sure that this incredibly normal man is just worried that people are going to associate him with the leather community, who do bootlicking, but for different reasons. This has its own weirdly problematic history too, with much of it being attributable to the works of Tom of Finland, who had some beliefs I might describe as bootlicker adjacent if it were not for the fact that he actually wore the boot during World War II. So I should clarify for the sake of Los Pollos TV that we're not calling you gay. We're accusing you of letting people who would happily see you dead use you as a meat puppet, but not in a gay way.
I'm straight. You gay.
Where was I? Oh yes, so the first step to solving a problem is to recognize the problem. Maybe you're Los Pollos TV, maybe you are another bootlicker. Well, we can solve this quite easily. You see, the easiest way to stop being called a bootlicker is to stop being a bootlicker. But if you stop being a bootlicker, you have to actually critique the people wearing the boot. And then you have to admit that it's your face, as well as the rest of ours, that is being stamped on. That is, unless you think you are the SS officer in this scenario. Stamping on innocent civilians, jailing protesters, invading cities full of innocent people and throwing them in camps, and generally doing the kind of things that will eventually get you dangling upside down in the Piazzale Loreto. Maybe you do. But it takes a certain special combination of arrogance, naivety, and evil to believe that you, while slouching in your chair, gorging yourself on Cheetos and rewatching Breaking Bad, are the evil emperor dominating your foes, when you are, extremely obviously, just another civilian. Another face for the proverbial boot to stamp on. So naturally, Tim Pool thinks that he is the boot.
You will be conquered by your betters. So the argument right now is this. I'll put it simply. First of all, when these people come out and go, Tim's a bootlicker for defending us, I'm like, no, you misunderstand. It's my boots. It's mine. I voted for them. I'm wearing the boot. I'm stomping on the ground. I ain't licking anybody. I'm clapping for these people that I said, please go out and enforce the law. And anybody else who's cheering for it, who voted for it too, we're all wearing the boots. You're the one crying. You're the one saying you're coming in and enforcing laws we didn't vote for. Well, I got bad news for you. The American people voted for the Republican Party in the House, the Senate, the presidency, and they got the Supreme Court. That means it's the will of the people and democracy that we enforce our immigration law. I'm not going to sit here and say that children should get wrapped up and abused or anything stupid like that. Your stories are fake and they're not happening. Mistakes are made, those are bad, we'll figure that out. But the margin of error is always going to exist, and we are going to do what our laws say. And these laws were not written by me, nor are they written by the current Congress. Our immigration laws were written 30 plus years ago, 40, 50 years ago. I only ask as a voter, and I know most of you watching, that we have those laws upheld. So when I see DHS, ICE, and they go out, and they're armed, and they're putting down these protesters, and then people look at me and say, you're licking their boot, I'll bet you misunderstand. I hired the boot. I'm paying their bills and clapping for them. So cry more about it, but your lies and manipulations ain't playing with me at all, because I gotta tell you, I honestly don't even care.
For those who blessedly don't recognise this man gleefully cheering on the worst successes of Trump's own personal Gestapo, and in fact, in this video, complaining that Trump isn't going far enough, and that more people must die for the glory of the regime, this is Tim Pool, originally making his name during Occupy Wall Street. In the aftermath, he quickly became a far-right propagandist. While you may have seen his face doing the round because he never takes his beanie off, even when he's wearing a suit, he is most famous for taking millions of dollars from the Russian government to make propaganda like this.
Ukraine is the enemy of this country. Ukraine is our enemy, being funded by the Democrats. I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation right now is Ukraine.
When he's not taking money from foreign autocrats, he's cheering on domestic autocrats via his extremely creatively named podcast, Timcast, and making the most mid-emo music since the days of All Time Low and Yumi at 6. Also, his family famously hates him, and have made it publicly known that they disagree with him and think he should shut the hell up. But do you know whose family hasn't publicly denounced them? Yet, it's me, Brigitte, science and culture correspondent for the Daily Telegraph, the only newspaper in Britain printed entirely by Boot. Our printing press broke back during the war, and well, rationing being what it was, we had to make do. That's actually where the last of Dan's good skin went. Way to take one for the team, old friend. Anyway, getting back to Beanie Man but for white people, the Russian money scandal is quite instructive as to who Tim Pool is. Despite his pivot from being a far-right maniac telling his audience he's a centrist, to being open about being far-right as if that wasn't obvious the entire time, he's not exactly principled, much like almost all far-right people in practice, but not how they like to present themselves. Take the episode where he claimed to be the boot, not the bootlicker, for example. He is very upset with Trump for signaling that he might turn down the temperature slightly in Minneapolis, claiming he wants more awful crimes to be done to innocent civilians. And at the same time, after Trump and his team's narrative about why Alex Pretty was, according to them, not a victim, despite what we all saw with our own two eyes, Tim backed down on his previously apparently steadfast commitment to the Second Amendment, agreeing with Trump that the Second Amendment doesn't count when you go to a protest. Which is not only unconstitutional, but is also completely at odds with how he talked about famous right-wing protest demon Kyle Rittenhouse.
What about your principles, Tim? Don't people have right to keep and bear arms? Reading the media was like just fiction, just pure fiction.
I mean, you see the things the media are saying. They twist things, they use sound bites, and like, it's ridiculous. They try to get away with it, and in some instance they do. I mean, they called me a white supremacist, a murderer, a vigilante, and none of those are true.
Did you know the Second Amendment was not about fighting tyranny?
And yes, despite being a supposed American patriot, Tim Pool, under the banner of Lauren Chen's Tenet Media, was part of a dark money operation run by the Russian government worth $10 million to spread pro-Russian propaganda. Now, he claims he didn't know who was running the scheme and that he'd never accept being told what to say, but come on, why else would you out of nowhere talk like this?
It is Ukraine that is in control of this country, and the Ukraine lobby is too powerful, and we've got to cut ties. But you better understand what happens if you go up against Ukraine. How many people got Ukrainian flags in their bios right now? More than Israeli flags. Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and to the world. We should rescind all funding and financing, pull out all military support, and we should apologize to Russia.
According to the BBC, the influencers involved in the scheme were getting paid $100,000 per video. I make like $50? Subscribe to my Patreon and help me get $1 closer to $100,000 per video, or at least 0.1% closer to a living wage. The conclusion we can draw from all of this, however, is that Tim Pool will say whatever is, 1, aligned with the values of the global far right, and 2, make him lots of money. Now, he's not alone in that. He's not even alone with crying about people calling him a bootlicker. But he will be alone when the machine that he's feeding, that he's insisting more innocent people die for, inevitably comes for him. Because fascism is a death cult. And eventually, after they come for the immigrants, taking out random people along the way, they'll come for him too. In fact, they demonstrably don't care who they take out in the process of their current despicable mission. If he drove a car near one of the people whose boot he insists he is, no matter how much he insists he is one of them, licking their boots will not save him. It'll only put him in a more convenient position to be crushed underfoot.
The grotesque image of a man, a god, tearing into the flesh of his own son, his eyes wide with madness and terror, his hands and mouth stained with blood. It was horrifying, and yet I couldn't look away.
Political movements, particularly those built on violence against a perceived enemy, have a tendency to cannibalize themselves. This is why we sometimes glibly say fascism is a death cult. A fascist movement, to unite its base, needs to direct them against a common enemy. The base is the in-group, and the enemy is the out-group that must be destroyed. Their destruction will, the propaganda goes, lead to the in-group's prosperity. The problem is, of course, that once you destroy the enemy, there is nothing to unite the in-group, and in fact, members of the in-group might notice other members of the in-group might actually have more in common with the enemy than with each other. Tim Pool, for example, is a quarter Korean. He also used to claim to be a centrist.
A lot of the regular, there was a lot of regular traditional liberal types, moderate lefty types. They flipped for Trump. So
I weirdly think a lot about the old adage about the French Revolution. The revolution will devour its children. This quote originally referred to the Goya painting Saturn Devouring His Son, which depicts Saturn, or the Titan Kronos for those of you who have played Hades 2, who, hearing of a prophecy that one of his children will overthrow him, eats his son in fear. This, of course, because this is Greek/Roman mythology, has the opposite effect to what Saturn intended and leads to his downfall. Now, Goya didn't leave behind a title or notes for this painting, or most of his work, so we don't actually know if this is the meaning he intended behind the painting. But it's certainly the meaning that Jacques Mallet Dupin took from it, and so, in 1793, Dupin wrote, "À l'exemple de Saturne, la révolution dévore son enfant." Or, in English, like Saturn, the revolution devours its children. The French Revolution, however, was not a single political movement. It was a clash of ideologies, organisations, and singular figures. It may have started off all going in one direction, but it was not one coherent group. What started off as an anti-monarchist force obviously split in many different directions, each disagreeing on how the country should be run, even if they could agree that it shouldn't have a king. And not all of them even agreed that it shouldn't have a king. The revolution's depiction as a singular being does make for a beautiful metaphor, but it does so in a way that is a little misleading. And it's no mistake that this phrase depicting the revolution as a singularly destructive force, devouring its children, comes from Dupin, who was a royalist and an anti-revolutionary. There is truth in the metaphor, however, even if it makes it sound like nothing but violence came from the French Revolution. Certainly there was a lot to go around, and perhaps I'm being a little unfair to this quote. I do think it's a gorgeous little piece of writing, and it's certainly a hook that will get more people interested in reading about the French Revolution. But when I think about this metaphor these days, it makes me think of a twist on it. It sends my mind in different directions. While the French Revolution was not a singular force, a single movement, one built on the same paranoia and fear but as one coherent force, is self-destructive in a different way. I think more and more these days about the parasitic nature of fascism, probably because of the current state of the world and how many fascist movements we have to come to terms with in a bunch of different countries. And with them in mind, I think about this quote. Fascism is an ideology rooted in fear. Fear of the outsider. Fear of what you don't understand. Fear of someone who practices a religion you find strange or does not find attractive the people you expect them to. Fear of political ideas that are new and say that poor people should have access to the same opportunities you have. Fear that, say, a black man might be seen as equal to you, that he might be able to get the same jobs, live in the same types of houses. Fear that you, in other words, might not maintain the privilege you've always had, for being born into the in-group. That you might no longer be considered superior. Fascism promises the maintenance of your superiority, and the destruction of anyone that might threaten that. And in that state of fear, you destroy all those who are not part of your self-defined in-group, until eventually, you might find yourself not in that in-group. Maybe you're not entirely white, like Tim Pool. Maybe you're gay or bisexual. Maybe you're from a type of Christianity that some people in the in-group think doesn't sound like the type of Christianity that they approve of. The revolution devoured its children. That's broadly true. But a fascist revolution is even more self-destructive. A fascist movement devours itself.
Summer 1934.
The SA, or Sturmabteilung, or the Brown Shirts, were a paramilitary force used to intimidate political rivals during the early rise of Nazi Germany. Stop me if this sounds weirdly familiar. In 1923, Hitler attempted a coup, with the support of the SA, 600 members of which attempted to overthrow the Republic. Hitler was arrested, but it didn't take. When he returned to power, and in the lead up to him returning to power, the SA rose with him. It remained separate from the official army of Germany, and was sent to intimidate and brutalise those that it considered enemies of the movement, attacking, for example, socialists, trade unionists, and Jews. The SA was led by Ernst Röhm, however, and this was a problem. Because no matter how much he led a pseudo-army to crack skulls in the name of Nazism, no matter how loyal he was to Hitler, Ernst Röhm was gay. The unbelievable evil he did in the name of the Führer could not make up for that simple fact. As the months went by, Rome was increasingly looking like the enemy. He was part of a group that was destined for the camps, and more bruising perhaps for the ego of a certain winner of the Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest, the SA answered to him, and not directly to the guy running things. On June 30th, 1934, Ernst Röhm and the rest of the leadership of the SA, falsely accused of trying to overthrow Hitler on behalf of the French, were, in the words of John Cena, compromised to a permanent end. Röhm, more than anyone, would be forgiven for thinking that he was the boot. He led the people with the boots. He wore them himself. He did the state violence people like Tim Pool cheer on. In his tenure as head of the SA, he brutalized thousands of Tim Pools. But in the end, no matter how much he licked the Führer's boot, no matter how loyal he'd been, no matter how many horrors he committed in Hitler's name, his life ended in a prison cell, denied even one final request. "If I am to be killed," he said, "let Adolf do it himself."
It's my boots. It's mine. I voted for them. I'm wearing the boot. I'm stomping on the ground.
If it can happen to the person in charge of the paramilitary force designed to punch enemies of the regime in the face, it can happen to anyone. Don't lick the boot. When you are face to face with a tyrant, do not think of how you can please them. Do not admire them. Do not spread word of their greatness. If you have any dignity to your name, do not let any man convince you that they, by right, rule over you. Do not willingly become a servant. Not to a king, not to a president, not to a boss or a landlord, and certainly not to an ICE agent. A man off the street who is so afraid of consequences he hides his own face. When you are face to face with a tyrant, do not lick his boot. Make him taste yours.
They are aware of the fact that they're on camera. They want to stay anonymous. There is, I'm sure, all kinds of Antifa elements in there. That's not, you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure that one out.
With the increasing brutality of the Trump regime in the United States, has come the rise in the most shocking and obviously self-defeating bootlickers. Yes, there's Tim Pool, but there are many others, and many much higher up. Remember Ted Cruz debasing himself in front of Trump after he spent months insulting him and his family? Marco, they call him Little Marco Rubio. J.D. Vance, who famously called Trump America's Hitler, and is now letting his base call his family racial slurs for a chance of power?
We're not canceling kids because they do something stupid in a group chat.
The entire conservative media sphere in the US, once mostly skeptical of Trump, now repeats even the most obvious lies his regime puts out, day in and day out, allowing no criticism, shedding all their dignity, all their individuality, so they can keep licking the boot of their dear leader. And on the ground, while many have been turned off by recent events, there are still those who see any brutality against ordinary people by the regime and say, they must have deserved it, and it wouldn't have happened if there wasn't a good reason.
Your stories are fake, and they're not happening.
Recently, the Los Angeles Times wrote a whole article titled, "Under Trump, the bootlickers have come out in full force. Minneapolis cements it." This article details the humiliating and servile actions of First Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California, Bill Essayli, who has constantly compromised any integrity and legal prowess he might have once had to roll himself out for Trump like a red carpet. To be stepped on by a man with the cognitive ability of a drunk lemur with mange. Minneapolis has brought the most obsequious bootlickers out of the woodwork, like worms in the rain, And like Tim Pool, Asali found that his bootlicking no longer received the praise and applause he expected. Act like you like the smell of the president's farts for long enough, eventually you're going to end up with shit on your face. If you approach law enforcement with a gun, there is a high likelihood they will be legally justified in shooting you, he snickered on social media hours after Pretty died. Don't do it! He also reshared the post of right-wing social media influencers Jack Posobiec and Andy No, who claimed Pretty, an intensive care unit nurse at a Department of Veterans Affairs hospital, was following Antifa tactics. Asali was soon getting smacked around on social media by gun rights groups, including the NRA, which has endorsed Trump in all his presidential races. He blasted his rant as dangerous and wrong on social media, adding that responsible public voices should be awaiting a full investigation, not making generalizations and demonizing law-abiding citizens. The Gun Owners of America, a group that's even more conservative than the NRA, called Asali's comments untoward, leading to the first assistant US attorney, because bootlickers love their titles, to whine about the non-profit, adding words to mischaracterize my statement, even though they directly quoted him. When history looks back at the cowards, sycophants, apologists, enablers, henchmen, and other miscreants that made Trump possible, the bootlickers will have a starring role. The "I voted for this" tribe, even when this is cruelty and actions that are more those of Macbeth than an American president. The bootlicker is a universally reviled archetype. Their bread and butter is comforting the most comfortable by afflicting the most afflicted. They try to top fellow bootlickers with even more obsequious acts of flattery, hell-bent on making the most damning line of Orwell's 1984 come to life. The bootlicker's moral compass is malleable. Wherever the big bosses move the goalposts, that's where he or she will kick the ball. If all goes to hell and America devolves into a rank dictatorship, beware the bootlicker.
It's my boots. It's mine. I voted for them. I'm wearing the boot. I'm stomping on the ground.
And this brings us back to Timothy Toole. This rant, the soon-to-be famous "I am the boot" speech, and the surrounding whining, is his reaction to the same backlash Asali found himself facing. After years of success and tons of money being thrown at him for saying "Trump good" at every evil thing the president has ever done, he's clearly lost any ability that he once had to read the room. Although, to be honest, I doubt he could read the room much in the first place. Tim went from being a stepping stone down the alt-right pipeline, pretending to be much less extreme than he was, to demanding that the streets run red with the blood of the innocent, and ranting about how anyone who doesn't want this should keep crying. But even many of his fans are against this. That does say a lot about the kind of people that watch this man, yes, but even the most cruel and unempathetic people have limits. I'll take anyone realizing that this stuff is bad, and that it needs to be stopped. But Tim is in too deep now. He has to lick the boot. He has nothing else going for him. No talent, no friends, certainly not any hair. He has bootlicked himself into a corner, and for the first time, he is hearing that complaint from the very people he relies on to make up his audience. They are starting to see him for who he is. Someone who would say anything to glaze the fascist movement that he relies on for his job. In this rant, it proves the insults are getting to him. And they should. People should be ashamed of being called a bootlicker, because it should be humiliating. It should make you want to prove that you are not servile. It should make you want to stand up to power, to reevaluate your position in society and stand with the people instead of against them. But Tim Pool will never do that, as much as he understands why people are mad at him. He has taken not the road to self-actualization, to solidarity and redemption, but a different road. He has decided that he, not even a captain but a glorified deckhand, is going to go down with the ship. He thinks he's part of the bridge crew. They don't even know his name. Tim Pool is not the boot, or the man wearing the boot. He is the perfect example of a bootlicker. When he watched a wannabe dictator sending his personal Gestapo force to kidnap people, when they end the lives of innocent people with absolute impunity, he cheers them on and demands they do more. He's not just licking the boot, He's making out with the boot, and he's doing it sloppy style. He's giving his tongue a workout. He's tying the boot's goddamn laces with the tip of his tongue. Tim Pool is a regular American citizen, despite what he thinks. He is as likely to be a victim of these horrors as Rene Good or Alex Pretty, and if what happened to them, God forbid, were to happen to him, telling the people with their boot on his neck that he loves Trump and ICE would not save him. Tim Pool, like everyone who isn't a billionaire or directly in power, should be banding together to fight back against this threat. Your first instinct when seeing the horrors we've seen from the people Tim Pool is cheering should be rage, not glee. If all people were to stand in solidarity against these people, helping each other, looking out for one another, like Alex Pretty did, like Rene Good did, people like Tim Pool would be safer. He benefits from the kindness of others. The herd immunity of empathy protects him. And all the while, he begs for the people making his world a better place to be destroyed, and for the people who lord over him to grow more powerful, more cruel, and more indiscriminate. That is the very essence of a bootlicker.
So when I see DHS, ICE, and they go out, and they're armed, and they're putting down these protesters, and then people look at me and say, you're licking their boot, I'll bet you misunderstand. I hired the boot. I'm paying their bills and clapping for them.
You are not special, Tim Pool. Petty authoritarianism is here. Men abusing their power to make everyone's lives much worse are here. The secret police are here, and they're bashing people's doors in, and much worse. And you're praising them? Telling them to do it more? Maybe I should take it back. Maybe bootlicker isn't a strong enough word for what you are. So, for you at home, leave a comment with your suggestion for the type of person Tim Pool is. If you can't think of anything, just write, Tim Pool is a bootlicker. But I will be rewarding creative answers with my official seal of approval. Alright then. You have work to do, my friends. You have your task, your orders. Godspeed. And thanks for watching. Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a hateful fool. A bootlicker with beautiful hair, and he goes by the name of Tim Pool. Yeah, Tim Pool. Now Tim took a look at Occupy and thought this is almost cruel. What if I fought for the 1% that bootlicking scab is Tim Pool? Yeah, Tim Pool. Whether Russian man or American or any tyrant that may rule, he'll cheer them on and he'll suck their toes and loves a taste of blue. It's Tim Pool. Tim Pool. Tim Pool. He'll suck their toes. Hey, thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. Thank you. This month has been bad for ads, so hopefully this came out by the end of January. Otherwise, I am going to have a very bad February. If you like this video, like it, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, share it around. I don't know what's happening recently. I don't know if I'm being buried or if I just made like stuff that isn't resonating, but I'm a little bit worried about everything. So yeah, share it around. Tip me, please, if you can afford to, on a Coffee or PayPal, links below as always. I should, yeah. And you can also give to my Patreon or my YouTube memberships, and there you can get non-bleeped versions of videos where there are bleeps. You can get occasionally early videos, access to the members-only Discord, my Nintendo Switch friend code, exclusive content such as interviews with people who I've had on the show before. I'm going to get stream stuff early when I've done that. That should be happening soon. I just need to check it all works. What I've realised now is that it's probably not going to be very... I'm not going to be very technologically literate at the start. That's okay. You learn as you go. But yeah. What a time. January is also a very expensive month for me. A lot of expenses going out right now. So if you can help, I'd really appreciate it. And if you do, you'll sign up That's not what I meant to read. Oh, that was the wrong line. If you do, you'll get your name read out at the end of each video, just like these lovely people. Rain, Michael McGrorty, Will, Alexandra Barnes, ReeseNet, Ken Sorden, Andrew Steele, Georgie, Carlito Del Mozzote, Anna Nicholson, Dungeon Slime, Naomi Gorman, Melody, Ben Norman, Heidi Law, Transform and Function, Clara Patching, Mattia98, Lilith Dawn, Spin Noir, Victor Lufgren, Gil the Gilded Dragon, A Slice of Cake, Rue, Charlie Hallam, Buried Elk, Ewan Bennett, Bags, Mountian, Gina Service, You Are Made of Stupid, Tomo, Melissa Jackson, Red approves of your stuff. Minstrel, of course, Jeffrey on, Tom not the quite so brave as Sir, Lancelot, LFR, Treequoy, Ariella, Proquar, Robin Thomas, Emily Eisenberg, Galexcape, Kirby, No Sparkling Heart, Corey, Gianna J, Mighty than the Sword, Carolyn, Imogen Q, Luciano Frias Andrade, Adam, Harry, Endog191, Cav, Quesadilla de Tortilla, Azul, Liron, Adam Lees, Daniel Nevels, no, not that Paul, MB, Wandering Wonder, Ashling Murphy, Lex Phoenix, Enter Kurzitz, Mira D, Jade Senior, Boa Ea, James W, Thoringill, Deborah Laboon, Zilla Athenaeum, Vince Whitaker, Emilia Lissette, Jason Haig, Frank McManus, Susan Foster, Helena Real, Sierra Whiskey, Ali Catgill, John N, Lloyd Luciente, Jason Cribbett, Shield Thaden, Robin Podolsky, Nightlight Pushy Jesus, Casual Observer, Manta Ray, Courtney Burmack, Sleepy Slug, Philippa Tabrogga, Soma Piglet, Brain Douche, Artie Wolf, Deanne McMillan, Caroline Regalado, Alexandra Lilly, Howard Lott, Meow Meowski, Kamui, Eva Kebab, Marty Hunt, Robin McCallan, Jane Luciferian, Melissa Allen, Ataraxis Builds Things, and Sarah Francesca Smith. Thank you all for helping. When I have interesting ad months like this last one, and well, to be honest, most of them since the algorithm changed, but definitely this one, your patronage really helps me out. It really, you make my day, my week, my year, my life. Thank you so much. I would really love to keep doing this for as long as I can, and yeah, not have to get more supplemental stuff that means I can't do this as often. So please, if you want that to happen, please give me your money. Yes, and give money to people who deserve it that are also not me. If you have money left over before, or if you have money before, because people need it. I don't know where that word was going. When it gets to this point and I've read the names off, sometimes I feel like I need to say more, but you know, I've just been talking for 45 minutes, so how are you? Tell me about yourself. Enough about me. What about you? How have you been? What did you have for lunch? I've never asked that question to a person. Maybe I should. Maybe I should start with that. Maybe to update my small talk. Yeah, I'll work on that. I'll make some notes. I'll come back to you. Tell me what you had for lunch. All right, bye-bye.